Hey friends, welcome back to noseyAF, conversations about art, activism, and social change. I'm your host, Stephanie, and we are kicking off season 6 of the show. While I'm prepping for the next few seasons, I will be sharing some special conversations that originally aired on Lumpen Radio along with a past few episodes. So today's episode features Chicago-based artist Bobbi Meier, and just a heads up, this conversation touches on sensitive topics including the death of a child. So please take care while listening. That said, Bobbi's work is deeply emotional and thought-provoking, using fiber and sculpture to explore themes like power, repression, and desire. I'm really excited to share this conversation with you, so welcome to noseyAF.
Gotta get up, tell the whole world you a winner. Vision of a star with a mission and a cause. What you doing, how you doing, what you doing, and who you are. Flex yourself, impress yourself. Check yourself, don't wreck yourself. If you know me, then you know that I be knowing what's up. Hey, Stephanie Graham is nosy as
Oh my gosh. Bobbi, welcome to noseyAF.
Thanks, Stephanie. I'm so excited to be here.
So I'm so happy to have you on here because you and we met back in the pandemic. We took a class together taught by artist Lynn Bassa, who's our friend, and it was about sustaining your practice. And one of the things that really stood out to me about your work was how lovable it was. It was so colorful and squishy. And I feel one of the things I'm always trying to work on is how I describe work. So I'm going to describe your work as squishy, colorful towers. What do you think about that?
I think that definitely describes a body of work that I made in as a reaction to the pandemic that was shown at OS Projects in 2023 maybe? No, it had to be earlier. It was right as we were coming out of that pandemic time. And I had this goal of making really bright, colorful work that related back to paintings I used to make. As a reaction to being cloistered and in this kind of situation where we felt, I don't know, so confined. And it was like a way to be joyful. Because the work previously, just before that, but not back to painting, that was a while ago, but just before that, I had been making work that was mostly gray and black and was a reaction to being a caregiver for a very dear friend who passed away and became memorials to her, but not intentionally. So then there was moving from that darker time personally into the pandemic and then moving out and making this burst of joyful, I called them Sentinels for Innocence, meaning innocent people, innocent children, innocent adults, that they would be protectors, but playful ones. And the titles, even though they're Innocence for Sentinels, with each had their own unique name, like Candyland or Coco, which referred to a poodle I used to have, and Misty, which really was about a horse named Misty of Chincoteague that I used to read that story as a kid. So it all kind of related back to childhood memories and moments when I felt innocent and playful. So I'll go with the squishy and colorful.
I love that. Moments of innocent and playful. And I feel like now everybody's trying to be more playful. That's a word that people are just trying to always infuse in the work that they're doing. I've noticed a lot, regardless of if they're an artist or not. It's like, how can we be more playful? And I don't know what it was about the pandemic that shifted folks to that, but yeah, I'm glad that it's like that now.
Yeah, it feels good. I mean, now I'm reacting, and I think feel most of my friends are to our political situation. Not that I want to go down that path, but I feel like
Right.
the work that I make, and I feel this is probably true for a lot of artists, is definitely influenced by what's going on in the world around us. So the pandemic, that was a big global thing that came down to a personal situation. And that's pretty
Sure.
much with our politics. It's kind of the same idea where it's this global situation that impacts on a personal level, and how I deal with it is through my artwork, and I can make it that can be um, a cathartic reaction to all that, where I can play personally, but also engage other people in that action, because that's been me lately with work and things like that, or even this just yeah, various talks on Zoom and people that I'm engaged with. So playfulness has come out of this dealing with the political climate over time. I mean, it happened during pandemic, it's happening now, and even before all of this, when I was in graduate school, which was 2011 is when I graduated with an MFA from the Fiber Materials Studies department, and at that experience, I was able to start really delving into why I make work and how it becomes cathartic for me. And at that time, it seems like there's not a, well, yeah, a tragedy, I suppose, in a way. My mother had just passed away when I was entered into that program, so that definitely influenced my work. There's a lot of personal, domestic um, imagery and objects in the work. And then I started doing this thing where the actual physicality of twisting, binding, stretching, moving object, like fabric or um, what's that stuff? Sculpey, things play. And that's a play material, right? So I'm playing around with that almost as a meditation as I'm taking the train or things like that. And my mother, I could I could ponder these things that, loss and things like that. And art in itself can be just an act of play too. That's okay.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we get
Yeah.
hung up as professional artists, like it's gotta have a really serious, deep meaning, which I think that happens intuitively. And
Mhm.
what happened for me is I went from being pretty much an artist who worked with two-dimensional materials, painting, drawing, and then starting to work with wood, plywood, and cutting it out in shapes that were reminiscent of William Morris and
Mm.
those craftsman type people back in the 19th century. And some of that also alluded to patterns I'd see in my own home growing up. My mom was really traditional in her decor and, flowers on the sofa and stuff like that. And I started making work with literally some of the scraps of that upholstery fabric, and it gradually became 3D. I would take bed sheets, and this was still what happened in graduate school is that's a time where you're encouraged as an artist to play. And so I started using materials I had never used before, and then I started using bed sheets, and they were kids' bed sheets, and because I have 3 kids, and that's been a huge part of my life. And then I could start with those bed sheets, I was wrapping them around I don't know how I did this first, but pantyhose stuffed with fiberfill,
Mhm.
and sometimes I'd cover it, sometimes I wouldn't, and I was also involved with photography at the time, and I would take the camera and zoom in on some of these sculptures that were so tiny, they were like the size of my hand, but maybe there was a tuft of fiberfill sticking out of something, and I zoom in with the macro lens, and then it became otherworldly, or it became part of the body, or it looked like a naughty thing you shouldn't look at, and I was really intrigued with that. So that experience has filtered into the larger three-dimensional work I make now, where I'm twisting and binding pantyhose into contorted shapes that I can upholster over to, and then almost sculpt it. Well, it is sculpting. It's sculpting with a staple gun and pushing the spandex fabric, that's the upholstery fabric, over the pantyhose and pushing it into make a crease or a fold that's provocative. So I'm searching for that provocation. I want the viewer to feel, well, to question, to be curious, first of all, to think, this is a strange thing I'm looking at. It alludes to maybe a part of the body that's a little bit naughty or someplace I shouldn't be thinking about. And it's playful too, and it's awkward, and it's all those things that we as humans, I feel, especially women, but I am a woman, so I can't speak for a man. I just feel like there's a lot of body issues for women. And I'm kind of riffing on that through these bulbous sculptures that I make.
So, yes, you had an exhibition at the Epiphany Center. Is that what it's called? Epiphany Center for the Arts. It's
Right.
a art space here in Chicago. When your exhibition was there, I remember going and looking, and there was a woman that saw your works that were on the wall. You had these framed smaller works with there was wallpaper with the bulbous sculptures. And she was like, "Oh, these look like my knees under a desk."
Oh,
Because
okay.
it's the filling, and it was so funny because, it's like you said, you would have this squishy material in the pantyhose, right? And then it would be they're warped, there's folded and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know, when she had just said there, it just made me laugh because it was maybe just if you put your fist like the curve, it could have been like a kneecap.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
And I'm like, okay.
I recently had an experience at the Driehaus Museum where I'm showing work currently in a group show called Materialities. And there's a large white sculpture it's simulating marble. It's based on materials that are in the mansion. And this piece has lots of folds and creases, and it looks like bodies, a tower of bodies that are struggling, and they're covered with white fabric. And to me, and I intentionally do this when I'm putting the pantyhose onto an armature, and then I know it's going to get covered up. I want to make sure there's bumps and texture showing through. So I intentionally will tie off the pantyhose so that it'll make a little bump that looks like a nipple or something like that. To me, they're very much about the human body. So this woman comes in and she's just looking at it. She's like, first of all, she said, "Well, what am I supposed to think?" I said, "Well, I can't really tell you what to think. What do you see?" And she said, "Well, I see an elephant trunk over here, and I see a teddy bear down here. Do you see that?" Like, "Well, no, but if you do, that's okay." And I felt like I got the sense from the way she was looking at the work that she was too embarrassed to say what she really saw, that it was more like, "Oh, I'll go to the safe place." And that's okay. I'm perfectly fine with that. I think part of this for me making work like this has been a little bit of a social experiment,
Yeah.
to see how I'm curious how people will react to it. And there's that end, and then there's the man who came in like a few minutes later and said, "Hey, I need to tell you something." I'm like, "Oh, well, he said, "Your work makes me happy, makes me feel happy." And that's great. I want people to have a feeling when they look at the work.
Yeah.
And that's important to me because I like to look at work like that. Work that makes me think, that's not just a one-off that, "Oh, that's a pretty picture," and then walk away.
Right. Yeah. And I think I totally, feel exactly how that gentleman felt, that your work makes them feel happy because I feel happy when I look at your work. It is a happy place.
Oh, good. I think
Yeah.
that's so interesting too, because some of it comes from a really sad place. There's a black chair that I made, in 2017 when I did the Hyde Park Arts Center program, and
Uh-huh.
it was I had this idea that I wanted to do an odalisque, in this kind of bulbousy way,
Yeah.
and I felt like I needed a chaise lounge to start with. So I've been working with furniture now for a while where I take the furniture and engulf it in these soft forms that I make. And my friend really if there's a best friend as a grown up, she was a best friend. So she was sick. And I mean, I knew that. She knew that. We didn't know what was going to happen, but she was always a huge supporter of my work. And she happened to be going for a walk slowly outside with her husband. And she happened to see her neighbor walking out of the house with a child's lime green upholstered chaise lounge. And she texted me this picture and she's like, "Hey, do you want this?" And I said, "How much?" She said, "It's free. My neighbor's getting rid of it." So Sandy is her name. And she turned me on to this chaise lounge that ended up over the course of a year as Sandy was getting more and more sick. And I was going back and forth between Hyde Park at the Art Center and way out in the western suburbs to where she was. That piece started to emerge. It sat in the studio for a long time just as this green sofa that my dog would lie on. And then over time, I had I had a student intern for a couple of weeks, and I said, "Here's what you need to do. Strip off all the upholstery and get everything off of it." So then it was the springs and the form, and it was bare, so it removed that previous history, and now I started building this form that turned into a muscular-looking pleather covered, it's not really pleather, but it looks like it, black sofa, or chair, basically. It looks like a chair. The springs are revealed, there's pantyhose stuffed into that, there's pantyhose around it, but it's covered with this, um, amazing, spandex that looks like leather, and I learned how to tuft. So, do you know
Okay.
what tufting is? Yeah, it's putting those
Yeah,
buttons
yeah.
in using a needle that's about 8 to 12 inches long, and, it was a wonderful experience in hindsight, the whole making of it over time, and then giving a talk in the Hyde Park Art Center, like, 3 days after Sandy died, and
Mm,
that's when it was revealed to me what that piece was about, because prior to
yeah,
that, it was just the making, the caregiving, and then here it is. This thing has become a memorial to that experience and to that friend. So the work, I think, does definitely, I want there to be humor in it and this playful nature.
sure.
And then a lot of times it comes from a darker place.
Yeah. It reminds me of comedy in a way, like comedians, like they'll tell these wonderful stories and these jokes. And then sometimes when you, like in an interview with them, they'll tell you like where the story originated. And it's, oftentimes like sad beginnings, or like a sad story that they've ended up finding humor in.
Right, right. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
background that we don't know unless they share it with us. So Felix Gonzalez Torres, his
Hmm.
work, I forget the title of that piece with the candy in the corner. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I do
Where it was the
know. It was
it's the body
at,
weight of his partner.
yeah. Let me
Um,
actually look it up.
yeah.
Oh, it's called Untitled Portrait of Ross in LA. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about that. That's a
Okay.
really, really moving piece.
It I know, even thinking about it makes me wanna cry,
Yeah.
but also in a happy way. So Felix Gonzalez Torres, Untitled Portrait of Ross in L.A. The first time I saw that piece was when I was still teaching high school. I brought my kids. It was at the MCA, I think. Yeah, it was at the MCA. And we're walking by this piece, and the kids are all excited because it's candy and they can take a piece. And then we
Right.
talked about it, and that's all they saw at first. And so we had to talk about it and the title of the work and what every time they were taking a piece, they were taking a piece of his partner, basically, because
Yeah.
they refill it every day, so that it's always the same weight, and then it's removed over the course of the day. And the kids, I mean, they were kind of freaked out that art can be like that. Do you know what I mean? And and for me, that work is so deep and meaningful in a seemingly simple way that's what I aspire to. Even though I'm making
Yeah.
things that look like these crazy Nouveau Baroque weird objects. Um, yeah, but he's been an inspiration for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, his work, that piece, I remember myself talking with friends, being younger, just eating the candy off of that. And then one day we looked at what that piece was.
And
And
how
it
was
does stop you in your tracks.
Yeah, yeah,
It is, yeah, it is the most, it's just very, very, it's just something where you're going like so casual talking. Oh, yeah, let me get, because, for the listener who haven't seen it, it's, candy that's in the corner and it's just a bunch. It's almost as if like a dump truck just poured a bunch of like cinnamon disc candy, peppermint candy into the corner. And so you just get it and you're like, oh, yeah, I'll take a blue one. I'll take a pink one. You're just picking your colors. And then you read about it and you're just like, man, that is terrible. This is terrible. You're like, we're just casually eating this candy. Also, it made me sad that Felix lost his partner. It made me sad about AIDS. All of these things. It's just like, dang.
right.
Artist Victoria Fuller at she has a show up at Governor
Governor's
State.
State. Yeah,
Yeah. And have you seen that work?
not well. Some of it I've seen in person. I did not make it down to the show.
Okay. Well, maybe you've seen this work, but she has this rhinoceros piece.
Yeah,
And it is a piece where you go in, for the listener, you go into the gallery and it is this life-size rhinoceros. And you see it, but it takes you a minute before you get there because there's a bunch of other artwork to see. So as I'm browsing around at the artwork, the rhinoceros falls over. And me and this other gentleman stopped and looked, and it just folded over. And so when I get to it, it is about the last standing rhinoceros of this particular rhinoceros species and him passing away, and how now that rhinoceros species is extinct.
yeah,
And it's
that's
like
true.
I just sat there and just stood at it, and I'm just like, dang,
Right.
So yeah, moving pieces like that is just stops you in your tracks.
It does. I had a show at North Park University about a little over a year ago. And the work was all these, I call them portraits. They're tapestries or actually needle points that are repurposed. That originally, this ties back into partially into the black chair I just described. Because when I went to learn how to do the tufting, I went to see upholsterer in Berwyn who Sabina Ott was using.
Mm.
And this is kind of a convoluted story, but her mother's chairs were there to be reupholstered, dining room chairs. And so the dining room, the vintage cloth had been removed and was kind of tossed aside. And I'm talking to Mario, the shop owner, and he's the one that told me, oh, these belong to your friend who she recommended that I go to him. Anyway, I see those pieces of fabric and I said, are you going to just toss those? Oh, no, she wants them back. So the long story short is I asked Sabina if I could have those if she wasn't going to use them. And at first she said, no, I think I'm going to keep them. And then within a month, she said, you know what? You can have those chair backs and the bottoms. She was sick and she knew she wasn't long for this world. So, and we were just, our friendship was at that blossoming stage. So it was really sad that we lost her for sure. She was an amazing force in Chicago. So I felt privileged that she gave me these chair backs and seats. And they sat in my studio for a long time. And I took them to the cleaners because they were like kind of full of cat hair and stuff like that. So I got them cleaned, brought them back, and happened to have an oval, what do you call it? No, it was a stretcher for a painting. Instead of a rectangle, I had these ovals that I collected, and I took the piece, which was an oval, and turned it upside down so that the back structure of the needlepoint was showing. So it became more abstract.
Oop, so sorry to interrupt, but we have to take a quick break and we will be right back with our conversation with Bobbi Meier.
The journey towards liberation is #MessyAF. And honestly, we're here for it. Hi, I'm Taina Brown, a feminist life coach.
And I'm Becky Mollenkamp, a feminist business coach, and we're your hosts for Messy Liberation.
Join us for conversations about current events, politics, pop culture, and of course, business, always with our eye on liberation from oppressive systems.
If you're like us and want to create a more equitable world, subscribe to Messy Liberation, available wherever you listen to podcasts, including the biggies, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.
We are back, and let's continue our conversation with Bobbi Meier.
And then that turned into a whole series from that moment of me searching for using first the materials that Sabina so generously gave to me. So that was so moving because her mother had passed away. She was sick. We're the same age. We were exactly the same age. We grew up on different sides of the country, but it just made me think a lot about similar circumstances of growing up, what that would have been like, the world was like, stuff like that. Anyway, to have those works, it took me on this trajectory of making a whole series of 12 ovals that aren't referencing specific people, but they feel like they're guests at a dinner table and they have a story to tell. So the titles are something like Girly Girl and Punk Rocker and Church Lady. Just they each have their own unique personality. And then there are people. The reason I bring it up is because at North Park, I had the opportunity to show all that work together with a table that I made from work that I made at the Kohler residency. Okay. 2 sinks that those were referencing my own grandmother's centerpieces for matriarchs is that work. And there was an artist talk and I gave a talk. It was mostly to students, but there were about 5 or 6 older adults that were present. And a woman who I didn't know at all, she said to me, "Did you lose a child?" And my husband happened to be there too. And we both looked at one another like, is she clairvoyant? So this is something I don't have a problem sharing it. I just was shocked that she understood something in my work told her that there was something deeper there. And
Wow.
the work we did indeed lose a baby when I was 7 months pregnant
Whoa,
through,
wow.
yeah, she was born prematurely and lived for 2 days, and, listeria was the cause. So she was fine until I contracted listeria, which is a type of food poisoning you've probably heard of. It's,
Yeah,
affects
yeah.
people
I'm
that
so
have.
sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So that was, the power of art to move people, because she picked that up. I did not say anything about that in my statement or in my talk, um, and it was shocking and amazing too, you know? And I think it came from part of that work, and I don't think I used this term, but maybe I did. It had a pantyhose frame around it, and some of it stitched in such a way that people have called these little nubs baby toes, and because they
Wow.
do kinda look like that.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
even though that work sounds tragic, it's really it's got humor in it too, and, yeah, just
Yeah, it's just like, wow, I'm so happy that you're actually speaking more about your work in this way because excuse you, Stephanie, and that gentleman at Treehouse. This is not happy work. This is personal and, very, yeah, it's really deeply personal and about friendships and relationships.
yes.
And it's cool to see like how connected to your work you are. You must be like the bomb friend to have. You're like a really good friend.
That's true, but you know that.
Yes,
You
I
are too.
do.
You are too. There's people that you just feel an instant connection to. I do anyway. I mean,
Mhm.
you were a person like that for me, and, just people that are genuine. You know that they're not hiding really. I mean, we all have certain things we keep to ourselves, like, I don't go around telling that
Sure, sure.
story I just told, but
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to tell it. It's a reality.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you. Thank you for sharing it
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
with us. Yeah,
Like,
cuz
I said I had 3 children, they're all
mhm.
well into adulthood, um, and the little baby, Rachel, who died, she was the 2nd of my 3 children, of my 4 children, actually. So, I don't know, the children in grad school, there was talk about, "Well, what influences you?" And I'm like I thought, "Well, my family's super important to my art
Yeah.
making." And the advisor was a guy, and I don't think he got it. He was
Mm.
he didn't have kids, and he wasn't mean about it or anything, but he was just like, "Oh, well, I don't see how your family could be, um, that influential in your work," or and I thought, "Well, they're not making the work, but they're certainly influencing the things that I make."
Yeah.
When the
Yeah,
kids were when their toys were all over the house and my husband was gone a lot and I was working full time and trying to still make art and making deals with myself to make a drawing a day, and um, I did that for 2 years. That picked up on drawing like, oh, there's this crazy toys that the kids had that look like aliens and stuff like that. I had 2 boys and a girl, so we had all kinds of gendered toys around the house.
yeah.
And that really started off I was making work that was more, well, it was definitely personal and also felt, I don't know, more important in a way. But they were paintings of, like, Pokemon on my bed
Yeah.
sheets. So, yeah, I mean, life is sad and hard, and it's also funny.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I try not to lose sight of that in the work that I make. It's gotta
Oh,
have some
absolutely.
quirkiness, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. But also like I think too it sort of plays into, you know, you always greatly identify, and not that you shouldn't, but yet you're like an artist mother, and that's a big thing too. It's like being an artist mother. And sometimes folks, it's even because now your kids are adults, but you still are a mother, right? And you still are active in those spaces. But I just feel like it all makes sense because of hearing you speak about your work and how it all ties into the work that you're making, the relationships and experiences that you've had. It's all coming together. I like that.
Yeah, thanks. I do too. I feel,
Yeah.
well, now I don't have to do the full-time teaching gig, so that gives me more freedom to make work. And it's almost a little bit, I'm at a point at the moment where um, this big show at Treehouse is coming to a close, and like, what's next is,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, well, back to the studio and start just drawing. Don't freak yourself out about it.
So speaking of your work at the Dree House that is currently showing, you have had your work shown in a lot of respected venues, such as the John Michael Kohler Arts Center, and it's been at Miami Basel Art Week, currently at the Dree House. I'm just curious, what's it like? What's it like to have your work in all these fun, respected places?
Well, it's great.
Yeah.
It feels really good. And I keep reminding myself, don't fall into that imposter syndrome trap.
Yeah.
I've worked a long time to make something happen. And this
Sure.
is the type of thing I want to happen, to be in respected places and be, I don't know, a professional, right? Recently,
Yeah,
I went
professional.
back to the old school where I was teaching as a visiting artist, where I used to teach in high school. And my former department chair, she said, "Oh, well, what are you doing? What are you doing now?" Because I'm, quote, retired from that job.
Mm.
I said, "I'm a professional artist." And it just popped out of my mouth. It's like, I don't want that. There's specific people that I've worked with in the past that think, art, even if if you're a teacher of art in a high school, especially, you're not really treated as an artist. You're a
Wow.
teacher and you know how to make some things, but you're not considered an artist in that world. And
Yeah.
I always felt that I'm an artist educator,
Mm-hmm.
not an art teacher, which is semantics, I know, but it felt like I'm educating these kids about art. I'm an artist. And that was always really important to me. When I was teaching high school, the kids would come in and I'd say, "This is your studio. You need to treat this place with respect. You're in here to make your work, and we can have some chit chat back and forth. But this is, I don't know that I use the term serious business, but I wanted them to treat the, the space with respect. Now, with a 14-year-old boy, maybe they're not going to do that so much. But by the time they were 18, the kids that really wanted to be there were there. So I'm not quite sure how I went down this path, but how did
No,
we
we were
start?
talking about being a professional, about how you've
Oh, yeah.
had your work in respected venues,
Oh, right.
which makes me think, the term professional artist, and I'm going to ask this question because I know that there are listeners that will want to know if you're an artist, what makes you professional? Like, I think I would call myself professional artist as well. Like, is it you think just the way you carry yourself, the way that you focus on your work? Is it that you're trying to exhibit your work? I don't think there's a wrong answer. I just wondered, for the person who's like driving, maybe they have their job and they have their art practice. What would you
Mhm.
define as someone being a professional artist?
Well, I think there's two layers here. The first thing for
Mm-hmm.
me, and I've noticed this for some other folks I know that are artists, is to get to that point where you call yourself an artist. because
Okay.
I think it takes a long time to kind of, oh, I'm an artist. That's what I do. I don't know. It's different than being, well, even than being a teacher. The teacher, oh, I don't know. For me, it was like when I could call myself an artist, it felt like an elevation in a way. And the pro
Yeah.
part, maybe that refers to like you're a pro. That means you're an expert at it, which we all know. I mean, when are you an expert? But I think to the outside world to say I'm a professional artist takes you outside of the Sunday painter realm. Like I'm not a hobbyist. This isn't a hobby for me. And that happens even now. People, they know I'm the work I'm making and all that, but it's hard for some lay people to get out of that notion of the Sunday painter, the craft person, that kind of thing. And I'm not dissing that role. It's just,
No, not at all.
I guess that's where I'm coming from. Maybe that's an antiquated term, professional artist, you know?
No, I think sometimes it depends. I think, I feel like if I'm at like a family party and someone asks like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I say, "I'm an artist," and they might take it to thinking that I'm just like sketching in my notepad while I'm getting my hair braided. And I'm like, no, no, I'm professional. I'm like serious about this. Okay. So maybe it's like professional/serious. Yes, I might sketch while I'm getting my hair braided, but it just doesn't stop there, So I
Right.
like how you said that, how you just simply said it's not a hobby for you. So look, if art is not a hobby for you, then just say professional artist or don't say professional artist. I was just curious about that. Because I'm so into art and film and culture, I had a mentor who's like, you need to find a hobby. This art outside of this, find like a non-art hobby. And so I took up flying little planes, the planes you take out to the field, radio planes.
Oh, cool. I've done that years
Yeah.
ago with my dad. That's so great.
Yeah. And it was funny because, speaking about like relationships and people moving you, a woman from my Bible study, unfortunately her husband passed and he used to fly radio planes. And I was like, I need a hobby. And I was thinking about this and she's like, great, you can have his planes. He has so many. And she didn't give me all of them, but she gave me the plane that I use. Because
Wow.
she's like, well, he had like a community and stuff like that would love to have his planes. And, but she gave me a good beginner plane. And at the field, there's a man who I would call a professional radio plane pilot because he knows all about it. He, shows you the ropes. If something happens, he's there, like he breathes this stuff, right? Versus
Right.
I'm the Sunday radio plane
It's your hobby.
girl. Yeah, it's my hobby. So, yeah, where he's like, but he's there to share and be kind. But like when I see him, I'm like, oh yeah, no, he's serious. He travels, and has his friends he meets up with.
He
So
knows
I'm
what
like,
he's
yeah,
doing.
y'all are. Yeah, I was like, oh, you're a professional, and he might not want to be called a professional. So yeah, maybe, but I'm like, no, you are. You like are a pro at this stuff,
Yeah, you really know what you're doing. Well, I do have a secret
Yeah.
hobby. I don't know if it's a
Oh, you
secret.
do?
I do. I grow African violets. Like I have
Oh, no
tons of,
way.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
I have like at
So pretty, like,
my house in Miller, I've got I've got a great porch for growing plants, period. But the
yeah.
violets love it. And it goes back to my grandmother because she grew African violets and she grew so many. She had this table. I was so, to me, it was huge. I don't know, probably wasn't. I was little. She had a whole table with pebbles all over it because she had all these plants and she would actually sell them to the flower shop down the street because her violets were so beautiful.
Mm.
So it's kind
Oh,
of an
wow.
inherited thing, hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about, Shar, who's the woman from my Bible study, I think about her and her, and her late husband. Like, she's passed his hobby down to me,
Yeah, I think that's great.
in a way. So I think that that's really cool,
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I know I keep thinking
Yeah.
I should have a show. Somehow I could integrate violets into, and I have a solo show coming up, and I'm like, how can I incorporate violets into that? I don't know. I've been photographing them with a macro
Maybe,
lens. I mean, I don't want to be trite.
yeah.
Flowers they're so easy because they're so beautiful. It's like, I don't know. It's a question
We
of how.
can make in the parking lot of the show. I can be out there with my fanny pack on, selling African violets like your grandma would when she sell it to the store.
Cool. Okay, there we go. It'll be a summertime activity.
Yeah, that would be great.
That's funny.
Oh my gosh. Well, Bobbi, this has been great learning about you and your work. But before we go, I wanted to see if I can just ask you a couple of little quick, corny fire round questions. These are little yes or no questions. And
Okay.
So are you down to have a little nosy round with me?
I'm totally down.
Okay. So do you have pets?
Yes.
And then would you ever be a housewife on a reality show?
Probably not. But I don't know. It would take me out of my comfort zone, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There should be that would be a fun, real artist housewife show somehow. My gosh. And then last two questions. Have you ever won a contest?
Oh, you mean give me an example. Anything, I guess.
Like if you've won a raffle, say put your name on a hat and win a raffle.
No, not really. I mean, I feel like going to Kohler was winning.
Oh,
I've won that kind of thing. A residency
yeah.
spot. Yeah.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting to think about residencies as raffles. Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, I hope it's not a total crapshoot, but
Yeah. And my last question is, have you ever or would you ever skydive?
never.
Never. Okay.
That's that. No, I
You're
don't like
that's
heights.
not a comfort zone.
Not at all.
So maybe you'll be a housewife, but you definitely won't skydive.
Right. That's true. Yeah, I didn't even like being lifted up like dads do or parents do with their kids. They throw the baby up in the air. I would. Have you ever seen that? And I would.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
I would scream. I did not like it even as a baby. So I don't like. I know. I don't know what it is. I don't like Ferris wheels and what's the other one that goes?
Oh yeah, I know. There's that carnival swings ride that just
Yeah,
it starts
any of
low
those
and then it
carnival
starts
rides.
to go up.
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm at an age where I'm like, I don't care. I don't need to like that. I don't want to jump out of a plane.
Right. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, before we close down, is there anything else that you think we should touch on, or anything you want to tell the world here?
I feel I just feel really honored to be part of the Chicago art community. I just feel like this has been a wonderful year for me personally. And I'm happy that I live here.
Yeah.
There's just supportive people, a lot of supportive people. And that feels really good. And I do have a solo show coming up in the fall. That'll be at Wabansie Community College. Yeah. So I know there's
wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm thinking about. What am I going to show there? So maybe it'll be African violets blown up. I don't know.
Maybe.
Who knows?
That would be fun. Wow. Oh my gosh. I love it. Well, on behalf of the Chicago arts community, we are so glad that you live here.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Stephanie, you've been great.
All right.
I'm really excited to do this, and I don't know. I didn't know what to expect, and it's been fun. I did expect
Yeah. Oh,
that.
good. I'm so happy.
I expected fun and laughter from you for sure.
Oh, that's great. That's good to know. Thank you. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Nosy AF on Lumpen Radio. I am Stephanie Graham, and if you are interested in Bobbi's work, you can find more information about her at her website at bobbimeier.com. Please stop by Lumpen Radio, check out Nosy AF there, as well as all of the other sister and brother and friend shows. And I hope you guys enjoyed today, and I hope you are doing something restful and enjoyable, playful even, dare I say it. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of the day. How many times can I say that? And yeah, see you guys in a few weeks. Bye.